Well, hello there, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Here in Perth, Western Australia, it's very much morning and it's very much coming into summer. It's now 10 to 9 in the morning for those that are interested, and it's expected to reach 34 degrees today. We're talking Celsius, and tomorrow 38. So the heat's coming in nice and early this morning. Anyway, to get into the subject content of this video, of course, we're going to be talking about BORNITE, which is also called by many people peacock ore, and this is where it gets very confusing when we're talking about peacock ore because it can apply to a number of different minerals. Now, before we do talk about that though, I want to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you'll stay to the end. If you're a returning visitor, appreciate your ongoing support. If you're new to the channel, just be aware that I have a number of playlists and I have a number of videos and of different styles. And so what I've done is created them in a way where hopefully there's an ease of access. Now, the other thing too is I invite everybody to put up their views, their opinions, their thoughts, their understanding and their experiences of the crystals that they use. And if they've got information that's different to mine, they might be able to enhance it on the pool of knowledge that's shared between members of the channel. And this is all part of growth and development. So my way might not necessarily, if I can speak, my way might not necessarily be the same as everybody else's. And I just think if we get new information, we can at least test it. And I certainly invite people that are experts about the mineralogy, if I can say it, and the geology of any of the crystals that I put up, because that is not my field of expertise. I have a Bachelor of Social Work and I've studied Masters of Counselling, and obviously I've been working for crystals on a metaphysical level for many, many years, but that doesn't mean that I'm an expert in the field of geology. This is just for us to use and, try and test. Now, I should also mention before we get into it, and not just rely upon my disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but just a reminder, when we talk about the metaphysical attributes, there's no scientific evidence to prove them. So you would be very unwise to stop your mainstream medical treatment and just go with the metaphysical. Okay, you can use the metaphysical information to enhance your current treatment plans, I would say, whether it's emotional, psychological, or physical, but certainly if you've got a physical diagnosis, I would certainly keep engaging with your doctor. Now, let's get on with the content that I can share with you. So the first thing to know about BORNITE, given that it's called peacock ore and there's more than one peacock ore, and we talked about one in the hematite video. There's hematite that's also called peacock ore, and this is when it's got the rainbow. BORNITE, though, is a totally different looking crystal. As you can see here, if you've watched the hematite video, you can see here that it's actually quite metallic. It's not fibrous like what the hematite is. It's more of a solid rock item, shall we say. You can see that it actually is made into jewellery sometimes. This is a wire-wrapped pendant. And, of course, it's called peacock ore because of these amazing, beautiful colours in it. It's supposed to be actually quite rare, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's just talk about the variations here in these images. You'll see that I went to a website here, geologyscience.com, and I obtained this image here of what we would call peacock ore or BORNITE. Actually, stick with the correct term, BORNITE in the rough or raw BORNITE. It's been untreated. And that is what you would find it like. You can see that there's a real difference here with the image on the right to the image on the left, because it's got the metallic sheen on the left, and the gemstone pendant also is quite metallic looking. Now, I may be incorrect here, I don't know, but this is where your expertise is valuable. My understanding is that this metallic sheen is something that develops after it's been exposed to the air and the elements, but I do question whether or not there is a polishing component to the raw ore that gives it this beautiful sheen anyway. I'm not sure. I don't really think so, and I'll tell you why I don't think so when we talk about the mineral aspects and formation of bornite. So we'll just briefly talk about bornite and the Zodiac, okay? And there's supposed to be a special link between Sagittarius and bornite itself. I personally don't know about this. This would be something I'd be interested in your thoughts and feedback on. My belief is that it doesn't matter what star sign you are, any crystal is going to resonate with you if you're looking for a specific attribute. But I often do try and process and unpack it and ask the questions of why does somebody believe or perceive? And I'm not going to, quite honestly, I'm not going to sit around trying to channel this information through. It could be a little bit time consuming and would just delay the whole process of delivering these videos. But anyway, where I'm going with this is the bornite, when we look at the metaphysical properties, we potentially will understand why somebody has linked bornite to Sagittarius. And this is because, if you're not aware of this, a lot of the Sagittarians will end up working in police officers or in professions of justice and trying to get fairness and equity for people. They're the law enforcers, or they might, when we talk about law, people automatically think purely of a police officer. It's not always about that. It can be quarantine inspectors. It's about compliance, okay? And it can be the people that actually draw up the contracts, that write them up to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so to speak. So when we look at the metaphysical properties of this, we might actually see that there is a relevant association with Sagittarius. And in the meantime, don't let that deter you from using bornite. Bornite to me is a absolutely beautiful crystal, and anything that's got the rainbow and what we call the flashes of colour when we hold it up to the sun and the light and that kind of thing, to me they're very special crystals. So I would imagine anybody can use them for anything, and that's because of the chakras. So as a brief overview of the properties, bornite is considered to be, well, in fact, anything with peacock colouring is considered to be happiness and lucky for the person that wears it, okay? But the other thing here, I just want to make a reference to this image I've got here, and I have put where I've sourced the image as well, because this shows a different look of bornite. You know what I mean? It doesn't look quite the same as the images on the other page, but they're all still, from what I understand, genuine article bornite. It's just showing that there's variations in what bornite looks like from the area that it's sourced. But anyway, back to a very brief metaphysical overview before we go into the specifics, which is a few slides down. Bornite is considered to convert all negative to positive, to give an equilibrium, a balance of mind, body and spirit. Now what that means is not just energetically a balance, this means a physical balance as well. So if you tend to be an all work, no play kind of person, it's going to bring balance back into that. When we talk about manifestation as being one of the attributes, we're talking about bornite assisting to make the first steps with manifestation. And of course, we've got that happiness and luck there as well. So now let's talk about the mineral, if I can say the word, I'm just not able to say it today. Good grief. Mineralogy, I think, is the word. So I think the first obvious difference between bornite and rainbow hematite is that when we talk about hematite, we're talking about an ore product, an iron ore product, okay? When we talk about bornite, we're talking about copper iron. So they're different. Just within this particular family, and this probably accounts for the fact that the hematite, rainbow hematite, has the look that it does. Anyway, this image here is also taken from a website. If you look there, you'll see the notation, copyright to John Betts, findminerals.com, and this shows you just another form of the bornite. Now, it's a very, very soft crystal. If we look at the hardness scale, it is 3 to 3.5. So this is why I say I'm not sure that you would be able to tumble a bornite crystal, because of the fact that it is so soft. It probably would just fall apart, I would think. I'm not sure. you can see there that it's also found all over the place, and I would imagine there's other places you can find it, not just well, actually I've put global, so that pretty well covers it. If you know where you can find it, let me know. Put it in the comments, because there must be other places that are big exporters of this product as well. So what else can we talk about with Bornite? Just that it can be brittle. This is why it's called soft. Quite often the color will be like this one here, where it's kind of, it's not the entire rock that is covered. Apparently it's a natural process that occurs to the actual rock, I'll call it a rock, when it's exposed to air. And of course, it's going to get more and more of that color. The other thing that I think is really important, we'll talk about this probably if I can find an image of it when we talk about the buying tips. But I think when you see these tumble stones that are out there that have got these brilliant iridescent rainbow hues to it, just be very, very careful that what you're not buying is probably a clear quartz or something like that. That actually probably not that, probably hematite that's been coated in titanium that they're shoving off or selling as being peacock ore, where it's actually not. I need to make mention of this business of toxicity because I've found conflicting information about this, where some people say that bornite is not toxic, where others say that it is because it's part of, it's to do with the S in that description. I think it's S3. If that's the makeup, then that's toxic. But bornite is supposed to be S4. Now, goodness me, this is why I say I am no expert on this stuff, so you'd need to be a chemist as well. So either way, if anybody can actually give us some clarity there, with authority, who has got a degree and actually knows about the chemical compounding or the geology or whatever, that would be very, very helpful to us here, because the thing is, whether or not it's toxic is going to determine how we actually use the product. A lot of people like to use crystals to make elixirs. They don't usually want to do inhalation, of course, but the reality is that if people are working with or polishing or doing whatever, they can actually get little dust particles, and sometimes it's toxic to inhale these dust particles. Now, I just don't know, because as I say, I've got the conflicting information from different, I would say, reputable websites saying that bornite is toxic. Some people say they aren't. So I would just take the approach that, better be safe than sorry. I wouldn't be wearing it on my person. I think I would avoid that. So I did manage to find an image in between making slides or recording them. And what I just want to point out here when it comes to tips for buying is, I think most of us, there still is that saying of, in a capitalist society, we speak with our feet, and we will buy the products that we want because it's all based on demand and supply. So the reality is, if we know what we're buying, we're going to determine how much we pay for it. And quite often when it comes to me buying the crystals, one, rareness is going to play a part in how much I'm prepared to pay for that crystal. And the other thing is quality. Okay, so I don't mind having what is, I like to call it third grade quality. I don't mind having third grade product, because to me it works just as effectively, if you talk about metaphysically, as a first grade, whatever high grade product. We're talking about metaphysical use here. So there's not an issue for me. But what I don't like doing is paying for something and not receiving what I thought I was going to get. So if I was looking for bornite and I was sold these crystals that are on the right, which you just don't see this happen, by the way. This is rainbow hematite, the image on the right. And as you see, it's got all these striations and that. It's a bit on the weird side. The image of chalcopyrite, which is also referred to as peacock ore by some people. Well, in fact, me, actually, I used to call it peacock ore as well. but it's chalcopyrite. Now, you can get better images. You can Google them yourself and have a look and see what happens. And in most instances, they're a cluster, actually, from what I understand. Bornite, of course, here's another example of what bornite looks like in the center. But the really big tip, I think, is being aware that when we look at crystals in this little white one with the squares and the different shapes and that kind of stuff, they're really, really pretty. But that's what I call the hematite that's been coated with titanium. And just so you know, the image that I've put here, the person was marketing it correctly, titanium coated hematite, which is what it is. But you will find that other people will market these as being peacock ore or rainbow hematite, which it's not rainbow. Rainbow hematite, you can see, is a totally different product that is on the right-hand side. This is titanium coated. It's very pretty if that's what you want, Just be aware it's manufactured, it's man-made. It's still going to have the natural... Actually, there would be two approaches to this. This would be the approach that I would take, okay? Whenever we're looking at the rainbow, we're looking at colour healing. Most of the time, I think. Rainbow hematite. Yeah, I'll stick with that. If we're looking at the rainbow, we're looking at colour healing properties. If we're looking at the actual mineral, which in both rainbow hematite and titanium coated, we're actually looking at the metaphysical products of the crystal itself. So, it's still an attractive crystal. I wouldn't say don't buy it. I would just say be aware of what you're buying and take a look at the prices. They are not scarce, okay? Titanium hematite should actually be as cheap as chips, even though it's pretty, because it's not scarce. That's just my opinion anyway. And of course, I welcome your thoughts. And actually, going back to buying tips, just... obviously, I've got a few at the moment, because if you've watched the yarning video, you'll see that because I'm making these videos, I'm inspired to actually go out and lay my hands on crystals again. And I have lost my supplier. He's passed away. So I have now started to try and source new suppliers online, and it's been a long time. And I'm finding that actually you've got to be very careful. I am reminding myself, if you're going to buy a crystal and it puts up the dimensions, 5 centimeters or whatever, just remember, something that's 5 centimeters long might be 3 millimeters thick. So you want to have the full dimension. What size is it? Not just 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. We want to know, for instance, with these little square ones, okay, it's a square, so it's 2 centimeters, but how tall is it? How chunky is it? Because that's going to impact, I guess, on whether or not I feel that it's something that I want, because I know the size of a product that I want to be able to hold in my hand. And if it's too small, it's not that there's an issue around the metaphysical properties in that instance. There is an issue for me in how I'm going to use that crystal. Now, at the moment, I want something decent sized as pendants, not actually the bornite. I'm not interested, actually, sorry about that, in buying the bornite at the moment. I've actually got rainbow hematite here, which is very similar, does the same kind of thing. But at the same time, these other crystals that I'm buying, I'm continually being disappointed. So I'm reminding myself, I bought something that was 5 centimeters the other day. And then when I got it, I thought, you're joking me. Disappointment was very much part of my vocabulary when I opened the parcel. But I can't actually give a bad review, because I believe the supplier knew that what she was selling me was actually pretty poor quality. So what she's done is she's tried to compensate, and she's thrown in 2 more pieces. Well, thank you for that. The way I see that is, because I've bought it from a website where you leave reviews up about the supplier. That's a way of keeping me positive, so that I write on there that, yeah, she was great. She gave me this great product. She was a very good person. She, just basically it's a bit of a payoff. She doesn't know me, right? I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say I was initially disappointed with the product because it was not as described and smaller than I expected. However, to the lady's credit, I'm not going to say who it is, she obviously recognised this and she gave me additional product for that. So that was very kind of her. So that way I'm leaving honest feedback that is not negative, it's just honest. So I decided to use these two images again as a comparison, because you can see that the one on the left looks really brilliant and beautiful. And, as far as this visual appearance goes, when we're looking for our items, I can imagine most people will put their hand out and go like, oh, give me the shiny one. I want the shiny one. Anything that sparkles, please. Okay, but the thing is, what most people aren't aware of is that when it comes to buying online, there are some tricks that the sellers will do. So the astute buyer has to be able to try and identify when there's been a trick done to make the colours look more vibrant. Part of that will be actually to do with the background. Part of it also is going to be whether or not they have wet these crystals before taking photographs of them, because the reality is coloured crystals tend to be more brilliant, and their colours seem to show more when they're actually wet. And this is one thing that my mentor taught me, was actually have some water there preferably, because I'll tell you what he does on other instances which will make you choke, and that will be a big tip for you when you actually go into shops. But ideally you have some water there and you can wet the crystal to be able to see just how brilliant the colours are. The other thing is you can go outside, hold it up to the sunlight, and this is why you see a lot of people that take the photographs outside of crystals, so that you can see the natural, what we call flare or flash of the crystal. Now in this one, I would like to think that the shiny, sparkly, metallic looking one is actually natural, because you can get bornite that is natural, like this, as we've seen. The problem, though, that I would be really concerned about, and I've rarely seen it, is when somebody decides that they want to be able to get that kind of look, and they might get this, which is actually a naturally beautiful crystal on the right-hand side, but it's not metallic looking as the left one. What they might do, though, is actually get one like that and then cover it in varnish. Now, if somebody painted my crystal with varnish, I can tell you I would be extremely upset and disturbed when I got it. I cannot even explain why I would be so upset about that, but I would be more than upset. I probably would be furious. To me, Mother Nature and her gifts and her bounty are absolutely beautiful in whatever state we get them. And so I would very much value that image on the right. Now I'm going to make the one that let you know the story that will make your hair stand on end. And this was with my mentor, because I used to go down to his shop and a lot of people used to come in and out. I became aware this idea of wetting a crystal to be able to see it in its true colours actually translates to, there's something about crystals, I've got to say, that when people are in a shop, they get all excited. They find the one they think they want and they go, oh, they get so excited. But, how colourful is this? I reckon this one will actually show the colour more brilliantly. They get all excited, if it's wet. And then they'll glance around. They won't wait to be shown the bucket. They will actually lick the crystal, or they will spit on it and then rub the spit around the crystal itself so they can see the colours more clearly. Wow, this is why I say buyer beware. And just be aware if you're the kind of person, and I have seen my mentor do it as well, where he has, you got to laugh about this stuff, where he's done the same thing. Somebody's looking at it and they go, it's a bit duller, it's a bit colourless. And he goes, no, it's not. You're just not looking at it right. And then he'll grab it and shove it in his mouth and lick it a couple of times and hold it up and say, see, there's the colour there. You've got to wet some of these crystals to be able to see the true colours. So that's worth mentioning as well. Just the fact that, yes, sometimes you're not going to see the truth or the fullness of the colour unless you expose it to water. The other thing is, before you cleanse and charge it, you might actually want to run it under a tap. If it's not particularly water soluble, you don't have to spend a long time. Just wash the spit off just in case it's on there. I have not been... Actually, I was about to make a fib there and I caught myself out. I was about to say I've never been tempted to lick a crystal, but actually I have been. I just haven't done it. Okay, one that I really find like I want to lick it, is actually the almondine garnet. There's something about almondine garnet that just looks delicious. You might hear me say that as I do the rest of my videos. There are some that I am tempted to lick. I just don't do it. I must apologise if there's no continuity within my voice tone, and this is because I'm having a few issues today with my internet speed and uploading. So I have had to take breaks in between recording the slides. But anyway, today with this part now, where I'm going is the metaphysical benefits that are considered to be spiritual benefits. So basically, when we talk about Bornite, it's attributed to be a totem of a person's moral compass, where it enhances their ability to know themselves, to understand their personal values, to be able to live within the integrity of their values. That means walking the talk, understanding fairness and justice, not this self-absorption of me, me, me. It's the recognition that we are all individuals, all of us, okay? Now, self-care must be a priority, and we know that. But where I'm going with this is Bornite basically enhances this capacity to fill your cup so that you can then support other people, okay? And this is about fairness, justice, equity. It also holds the energetic capacity to be able to stabilize not just your emotional aspects, but also to stabilize your own aura, your chakras and this kind of thing, to keep them aligned and all the rest of it. So when we talk about the integration of values into daily practice, that's the personal integrity as well. It's where we're not just saying, for instance, one thing that's up there for me that I recognize quite often is people say, I'm extremely spiritual and I believe in divine love and divine compassion. And basically it's this idea of perfection that is spiritual. Divine love is unconditional. Excuse me while I cough. Sorry about that. Okay, but as humans, humans are individual and unique, and they grow at their own independent individual rates that are perfect for them. So when we say we're a perfect and divine specimen, well, we all are, okay? So where can I go with this? So I guess when we say that we extend unconditional love to other people, this is the recognition of the namaste, the divine spark that lies within all. But at the same time, there has to be a recognition that we are all human and we all make human errors. We might not always be rational. Sometimes we may be making emotive-based decisions or impulse decisions based on how we feel that actually can take us down a pathway that is perhaps undesirable, shall we say, or regrettable down the track. But at the same time, that will contain a learning experience in itself. And we'll talk about that in a moment, when we're spontaneous and wear a heart on our sleeve. But anyway, what happens is that when we are aligned, we recognize that we have to be rational in our decision making. We have to be able to weigh up in any situation what's going to be the risks and benefits of a decision. Now, sometimes if you're anything like me, we're going to do that rationalization and go, but I feel compelled to do this. This I feel is my path, and we will walk it, even though we know it may cause us some grief in our physical existence. Certainly for me, that's been the case. And to put this into perspective, of course, I believe my path has been about advocacy and supporting vulnerable people. And in the process, what has happened is I do believe that I was on track and following my divine guidance to do some of these actions. But often it's a case of, when we're talking about humans, it becomes a case of shoot the messenger. So examples of how I might have done this, because I'm thinking I can't just leave you hanging in the balance and thinking, what is she talking about? What I'm talking about is that I have worked for volunteer groups where I've written letters to ministers of government and that kind of thing to actually get justice issues sorted out. When somebody has been the victim of injustice, I've actually tried to be part of creating a better balance, shall we say. But anyway, going back to the spiritual metaphysical benefits of bornite, it really is considered to be a stone that activates and enhances your capacity to connect with the angelic realms or the higher realms, or what some of us will call the celestial connection. So, from a physical perspective, this business of healing attributes and balance actually tends to be related with the lower body, the legs, blood circulation. If people have got issues with vertigo, I'm not sure how the business of fever relates, I'll be quite honest, but it's also said to promote healthy growth in children. Now, if you have used any of the crystals, and this includes bornite, and observed noticeable physical changes for you, then please do put up if you've used bornite and how it's helped, because it's also supposed to assist with muscle spasms and circulation. Now, funnily enough, this is not bornite, but by this I mean I still get surprised sometimes. And as I say, we have to remember that there's no medical evidence to support the healing attributes of any crystal. But at the same time, sometimes, in my experience, I have observed changes, but would those changes happen with everybody? Would they happen every time? I don't know. But where I'm going with this is I actually had a headache today before I started. Not a really bad one, but a bit of a headache. And I thought, I just want to knock this on the head, literally. And went and did, because I've got a whole table now done up. I've done an Excel spreadsheet that I'm working off with the video content. How can I treat a headache? What crystal do I need for that? I was actually thinking choroid, which is another beautiful crystal. I haven't done that video yet. And choroid does work for headaches, apparently. That's one of its physical healing attributes. But also so does carnelian. And I thought, well, I've got my carnelian at hand. I'll just put the carnelian on. Well, I just realised I put the carnelian on just as I was starting this video. So you may as well say within half an hour, if not much less, that headache is gone. So, from an emotional or psychological perspective, bornite is considered to be very happy, sensible energy, and it inspires you to take action to improve both your present and your future state, while allowing you to anchor yourself in the positive, rather than being weighed down by negative thoughts or negative views. So it's got that transformational capacity to it. And if you've got a history of self-sabotaging thoughts, it will dispel them. So it improves finding solutions to problems. It allows you to think clearly, to find solutions rather than dwelling on the problems that you find along the way. So it's definitely a crystal that will actually help push through obstacles. So from a chakra perspective, because it carries the colour of the rainbow, it can work with, energize, activate any of the chakras if you want to work on one individually. However, for me, I like to work on them all together. So you could actually work on the chakra system and align and activate each of the chakras at the same time. The other benefit is, of course, that it will balance your aura, which in this image we're looking at white. So you would see the colours of the rainbow going through there. But the other attributes, so there's always more, is this is not the only aura. When we talk about this first aura here, that would actually be the first aura. I say first aura because it is the first aura, but I don't have a graphic where it shows you the amount of auras that are around a person. It's kind of like, I guess if you were looking at a chicken egg, you've got the white of the egg that supports the yolk, if you like, the life force actually. And then that yolk is surrounded by a thin skin, and then you've got the harder shell around it that protects what lies within. So in some ways, that's a bit like what the aura is like when we talk about the auric layers. So within bornite and the aura, let's just say that there's about 7 layers of the aura that I can think of offhand, and bornite would be used to actually strengthen the energy fields, because this is what we call them as well, the energy fields and the layers, and even meridians actually. So when it comes to suitable uses, obviously there is that consideration about toxicity if you're going to use it as jewellery. But more importantly, well, is it more important? I'm not sure. But the bottom line is, because bornite is such a soft mineral, apparently it's quite rare to find it in a jewellery setting. A jewellery setting, from where I sit, if it was a good quality one, would make it okay, because to wear as a pendant or against the body or whatever, because you've got that shell of protection around it as well. However, use your own discretion with it. It's mainly used apparently as a specimen for mineral collectors and people like me, that if I could afford it, I'd have great big clusters of it everywhere. So basically, it's an environmental, ornamental type crystal. In regard to meditation and holding it, look, I would consider doing it if I had some. Probably, though, I would be inclined, until I have more information about whether or not it's toxic against the skin, to actually hold it within a crystal, within a silk scarf or something like that. Just rest it on something as opposed to on my skin when I work with it. But having said that, look, I've got to say that if you've got it in your environment, you don't actually have to hold it to receive the benefits. You can actually focus your attention on the bornite or the crystal that you want to work with, much as you would focus on the flame of a candle here. You know what I mean? So that's a meditation technique, if you're not aware of it, where people say if you struggle and you need to be able to focus your attention to enhance your meditation practice, what you do is you light a candle, and then you basically focus your eyes, you allow them to glaze a little bit, and you just focus on the top of the flame as it flickers, and then you put your focus of attention onto your breath. So you're basically multitasking. You're watching that candle flicker, the flame, and you are focusing on that meditative breath, into the count of 3 or 5 or 7, whatever it is that you're doing. That, what do we call it? Square breathing, cyclical breathing, spiritual breathing, whatever. But instead of focusing on a candle, you could focus on the bornite. This is just a suggestion that I would consider doing. So this video is getting long. Rather than talk about affirmations, I've just given you a couple of examples here of what you might do or what you might be able to use if you're going to be working with bornite and trying to bring this energy into your life. Just a couple of suggestions. Of course, whatever area you're working with, you would adapt these types of affirmations to suit your purpose and your intention of using the crystal. So if you're new to the channel, you might not be aware. People that have return visitors will know that when I provide services, I have a crystal bowl. It's a lucky dip, basically. And I ask the client to draw a crystal, and that becomes an oracle or a messenger. Now, of course, any messages are dependent on the person's circumstances, context, and that kind of thing. It just depends on what comes up. But from a general perspective, if somebody pulled bornite out of my lucky dip, I would be reminding them that joy is a state of being. It's a choice, and it is a matter of making a commitment to being happy and to opening the heart to be able to experience and feel joy at a core level and to express it. Now, of course, just a reminder too that joy is the extreme end of happiness. It's not just a little bit happy, it's the full happy. So there is this awareness and recognition as well that life is cyclical. So depending on the person's situation, it would potentially be a reminder to the person that the wheel of life goes round, and that they should grab those happy and enjoyable times and make the most of them while they're around. And that might mean expressing to the people in their lives how much they love and value them before the wheel of life turns around again. So it's about valuing and appreciating the moment, finding joy and happiness in each moment. So as far as crystal care goes, I wouldn't be leaving bornite submerged in water. And the other thing is, I don't think I would actually be leaving it out on the buffet or wherever being exposed to air all the time, okay? I think I probably, when it comes to bornite, I would probably leave it in a glass setting or a specimen box or something like that where you can see it, but you only pull it out when you want to work with it. Because I'm just not 100% sure how it copes with an exposure to the elements. I definitely would not be dropping it in a bowl of salt, and I would probably, if I needed to energize it and clear it energetically and that kind of thing, I think I would be reliant on my selenite for it. Or if I, yeah, see, I don't usually use amethyst these days. I did back in the day, but after a period of time, I became concerned about impacting my amethyst clusters. Well, the bottom of the geode actually is what I've got, and I just don't want to damage it. So I don't use it for clearing and cleansing crystals anymore. I tend to rely on selenite, and I definitely wouldn't. I don't see myself putting bornite out in direct sunlight either, or even in the rain, which these are all methods that I might choose at different times. I might on occasion leave it outside, perhaps under a full moon at night time, of course, because that's when you've got your full moon anyway. But I think I would be treating it very carefully. So, my friends, that's about all I can give you about bornite. I sincerely welcome your thoughts and input of anything perhaps that you've experienced, as I said, and that can actually include whether or not you've got bornite yourself, if you use it, how you use it, how you care for it. Do you leave it in a protected box, or do you leave it out? And have you noticed that it's becoming damaged by exposure to air or whatever? In the meantime, though, I'm going to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week. Catch you on the next video. Love you and leave you for now. Bye-bye.